if it's possible to just open with meh, I think this is probably the game to do it. If not, I, I don't even know anymore. I guess the Bears are 2-0. However you want
Whatever.
to look at that, but hey, we are here, and whatever that Jekyll and Hyde game was today, the Bears are victorious, 17-13 over the New York Football Giants. Welcome into the Bear Front Hurry Up Recap. I'm Steven Johnson. He is Nick Bidding. Nick, we talked about this while it was all unfolding. I feel so empty.
The Bears are 2-0 and it doesn't feel like it.
Right.
It's unbelievable. It's the funny part is, and this is next week's preview, but it's really funny. It's like the Falcons are going to walk in at 0-2 and arguably have played better than the Bears, and it's just hilarious. So this is going to be a slap fight of epic proportions next Sunday. But yeah, it's weird. We were joking during the game via chat, but someone put on the tape of the 2019 game. It was just like, screw it, they won't even notice the difference. It felt like the carbon copy of the game where the Bears go up early, can't get, and then all of a sudden can't get out of their own way later on. So I guess the Bears are 2-0, but God help us if everything's like this. I can't do another season like this, Steven. It's like, yeah. I messaged you and said, do we have another horseshoe up our butt season coming after that? After Massey called that pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's that Massey catch. Just a ball, just the whole second half. I guess let's start at the beginning and at least feel good right now, and then we get to the bad. I guess that's the way to go. The way that the offense came out and marched down the field and looked so competent and just like an NFL offense, only to watch it all, I guess, unravel. But things went so well, like the first two quarters. It's like, what happened? What happened? Mitch was on track for a fantastic game. He was dropping dimes again. He had
some in there in the first half.
There's so much that I'm just sitting on, and like David Montgomery, arguably you could say his best game as a Bear was today. If it wasn't for the fact he got dropped on his noggin, and thank God didn't break his neck, because I thought
that was really bad right away.
Yeah, it's man, oh man, like.
Well, and then they seemingly forgot about him for the next two quarters. It was very odd, and then he showed back up. That last drive was great.
Yeah,
but he's the last 2 weeks now. It's the whole offense, so it's not a David Montgomery issue alone, but it just really seems like he's gotten going early the last 2 weeks, and then seemingly nothing until the fourth quarter, and today. That last drive the Bears had in the fourth quarter, he was spectacular. The offensive line was really good. Weirdly, I formation tight end works. The Bear, Nagy still hasn't 100% figured that out yet. That this has worked every time we've tried it, but I'm going to keep going away from it. And then they bring in Patterson and run to the edge, and now they're 2nd and 12. And it just, I don't know. It is. The beginning was great. I was really hopeful, and I was sitting there thinking, like, all right, this team's going to make me eat crow. I will happily eat crow on this. And then Nagy and his play calling and decision making showed back up, and just the entire team kind of went in the tank for basically the rest of the game, to be honest. And aside from the one drive in the fourth, where I really felt like, wow, this is a heck of a response to come out and try to seal this game away.
Right, and that's the thing is in the first half. Literally everything fell the Bears' way. Like you go down the field, you get the early score, you then have the Giants' best player, what we assume is going to be a torn ACL, which I mean, that's rough. I mean, Saquon Barkley is a fantastic player to watch. He's a guy
also a good dude.
Yes,
he seems like a really actually good person, so it makes it even worse.
Right. And so with that, it's like, what more can you ask? And then you watch Robert Quinn and you watch Khalil Mack with some plays early on in the game. And like everything looks like it's going to be like a blowout. Like it's all leaning blowout. And then the wheels just come off. And I'm still trying to just wrap my mind around it, because after the second turnover, Matt Nagy should have put the pedal to the metal and just stomped on their necks. And he didn't. Like it just
Well, I guess what's interesting is when the wheels come off, is it felt like last year, and I go back and rewatch it to confirm this, but I don't have that type of time or patience right now to do that. But it felt like last year at times when the wheels came off, there was a moment. And you could go back and say, this is the moment when it all started going poorly. It was a terrible play call or a turnover or something. This year, when the wheels come off, it just feels, this sounds weird to say, but almost more organic. It just kind of happens, and there's not this, you can't put a pin in the moment where it happens. Yeah, it just kind of all of a sudden kind of peters out, and you're wondering what or why, or are the Bears just not good at second half adjustments in a way? I don't know what the secret sauce is to get this right, but it's not like they're blowing up. It just feels like it kind of naturally wanes, and I'm not sure why. It could be rust. It could be a lot of things. This whole COVID thing. There's a lot of kind of weird stuff that's going to go on this year, and I don't know. Maybe our rhythm or condition. I don't know. Conditioning could play a part in it.
Something along those lines, I think, does. I mean, you just look at today in general across the league. It has been a doozy of a day, just in terms of just the bizarre, the injuries. I mean, it seemed like by the 3:00 games, the injury list was a mile long. I believe there were 3 different ACL injuries today. Nick Bosa with the Niners, you had Saquon Barkley with the Giants, and then you had Raheem Mostert with the Niners as well. I believe his was only a sprain, but I mean, it's just, it feels like it's a bizarre year, and I think you hit it right on the head. There's really no rhyme or reason to when things happen. It just happens, and like we saw last week, and the first 3 quarters weren't great. You watch the fourth quarter. Everything looks like it's coming together. You bring it into this game. You see the first 2 quarters. Everything looks like it's coming up roses. You look at the stat line for Trubisky in that first half. I mean, he was killing. I want to say that his quarterback rating was at like 137 or 136.
And it should have been higher. He had a couple passes there to the Miller that didn't get complete. It's just, it could have been better, and he played great in the first half. The second half, though, Jesus.
Yeah, so, I mean, really a tale of 2 halves here. First half, 13 of 18 for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns. Second half, 5 of 10 for 31 yards and 2 interceptions.
And what I will say, and we'll get this out of the way right off the top, is that second interception, that's on no one. That's just a phenomenal football play by the Giants defensive back. I forget his name off the top of my head, but that's a non-issue for me. The one issue I have with the throws he had are the 2 on the final drive. The one that he got really lucky was tipped at the line of scrimmage, because there was a linebacker right in that passing lane, and that might have been 6 going the other way if that gets through. And then the one that Massey caught on the deflection, you threw into double coverage to your tight end and got a ball popped straight up in the middle of the field, which is normally just that's not good. That's bad for what I've known of football. And the Bears, he lucked out on that one. So it was really weird. First half, he looked really in control, really comfortable. In that second half, especially that final drive, he was just pressing. It felt like on that final drive. And maybe that's something you work through in practice once you get it on tape. But year 4 in the league, that's the thing, is sometimes I feel like we talk about Mitch like he's a rookie or a second-year player.
He's not.
This is a guy in his 4th year. We're talking about not having to press at the end of games and force passes into coverage in critical situations. I feel like we should just be beyond those conversations at this point.
We should. That's the problem. Again, I look at the game. It's just so difficult to, at least in my mind, to pin much on Mitch about this game. The offensive line today also was very hit or miss. They weren't great and they weren't bad. They were somewhere in between, where they were great at times and bad at times. So I don't know how you grade that out. Right. I mean, they gave him all the time in the Mooney touchdown. I mean
Mhm.
that. I mean honestly, this game falls on three people, and I don't want to say I wish that they got what they had coming to them,
Mhm.
because they obviously didn't, as we all know. That you don't get spotted 17 points against a bad team, missing key starters, and then flub it like you almost did. Uh, Allen Robinson, not a great game.
Mhm.
The James Bradbury interception, like you'd mentioned, just it's a fantastic play. However, when you go up and you're the first one to gain control, gain possession, it needs to stay there. Like
Yeah, to
I
me, I kept watching. I never felt like A-Rob had possession. I'm not excusing him. Like if you're gonna
right,
pin it on, I hate pinning interceptions on people a lot of the times because it's eye of the beholder stuff. Unless
right.
like it's super obvious. That to me, I don't. I never felt like A-Rob had the ball. Now people could argue that he should have had the ball, and that's fine. I just never felt like he had possession. I felt like Bradbury had it and A-Rob came in late. I felt like Bradbury had it before A-Rob even did.
Which is the aggravating thing about it, because I mean Bradbury never turned around to the ball ever,
No.
and which is the aggravating thing about that whole thing. And then the other one
But
with
some I will say some defensive backs coach teach that. They say don't turn
yeah,
around, keep your eyes there and then rake through. So
right.
that could be a
And,
technique thing as well.
and then the tip drill interception as well. Just not a great setup here. And I believe he didn't even really have that great of a game. If I'm not, yeah, three
That's
catches for 33 yards.
yeah, I was gonna say 3 for
Um,
33.
I mean he after the week that he has had with everything going on, not necessarily the best look in many eyes to go out there and have this type of game. That's all there is to it. And you hate saying it, but knowing the Bears, it would also not shock anybody if they're like, well, I mean, you got to play better if you really want to command this type of money and literally take the outlier. I know we just discussed outliers on Thursday. That's that's something that could easily be put up against him, which is in a sense aggravating, because in the grand scheme of things, Allen Robinson is still Allen Robinson, and he's still making catches. He had a fantastic catch on the first drive, kind of airing out like he did in the Detroit game. So it's like, I don't know. There's good and bad, but pinning it with him, Matt Nagy and the play calling, which we all know was just absolutely atrocious. I guess that's our next stop here. Um, I don't know where to start, because there's like three different spots that I feel like we could pinpoint that it just made you go WTF.
The Nagy thing with me is a lot of it's very abstract with Matt Nagy to me. Sometimes, obviously, the play calling sucks, and I'd love to go back and watch this and really see how the Giants took the Bears tight ends out of the game today. Really, because the Bears tight ends were really a non-factor for most of the afternoon. So I really think it was. I almost feel in a way if you take the tight ends away from Nagy, he really doesn't know what to do. We saw that last year, basically all of last year. The last half of 2018, we saw that, and then it's going to be very interesting to see if teams from now on just say, "Look, we're taking away your tight ends and making him try to play call around not having his number one weapon," and he has to be more flexible in his play calling to get around that, because I feel like if that's the book that's out on him, because maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's causal, is his offense when his tight ends aren't involved looks terrible. And if the Giants took them away today, like it seems they did, and the Bears offense sputtered like this, there might be something there. I don't know. I'd have to go back and see how the Giants matched up with Graham and Komet, but they had their names called 3 or 4 times today?
Right. Right. Yeah. It's and I know Jimmy missed what should have been a catch and bounced off. I believe it could have easily also been an interception there. It was just off the path of a secondary guy for the Giants. But it I don't know. There's just something about it, because we always hear in during the week in practice all the different weapons that this team has, and how many different looks they can give, and this guy's a playmaker, that guy's a playmaker, this guy's a playmaker. The only ones that we've really seen through the first two games have been Allen Robinson,
Mhm.
and I hate saying this, but I feel like we're getting to that point because honestly, I'm kind of shocked at the amount of playing time he's getting, but he's doing something with, and that's Darnell Mooney,
Mhm.
who is apparently going to be the diamond in the rough out of this 2020 draft class if the Bears have their way and if Mooney has his way. With the way that he's, cutting up the field. And again, that touchdown, having the insight as a rookie to come back on the ball and get open for Mitch on just a duck of a throw. that was not a
I feel
pretty
like
ball.
Mooney is everything they wanted Anthony Miller to be. Like Mooney is like perfect role Anthony Miller for the Bears. It's like Miller 2.0 without all like the silly like mistakes and stuff.
Right, right. And it's nice to see that you're getting that kind of productivity out of a rookie, especially a fifth round rookie. That you did make a point of going to grab in the draft as well. And the last one here, just in terms of how this almost all fell apart. And again, I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to see the all 22 as well. But it really felt like it was a more often miss than hit when it came to the front seven maintaining pressure on Daniel Jones, a quarterback who is prone, very, very prone to turning over the ball. As we learned very early on in that first half, it's just like, okay, we can let up. We're okay. And then it got to the point where it was a one-score game. And then it got to the point where it was the 4-point game. And it's like, you got to do something. You got to get something on this guy. And it was like maybe a play every 8, you were getting significant pressure and things
It
just
felt like it was
never.
edge pressure. What I will say, and
Yeah.
this is just me recalling it offhand. I haven't gone back and rewatched the game because I'm not that much of a sadist yet. But it felt like to me watching the game is the edge pressure was okay, but Jones was able to step up because there wasn't much pressure coming up the middle of the field. I felt like they were able to wash Mack and Quinn out of the play a little bit. Jones had room to step up and was able to make some decisions from there. It felt like I know Hicks had a sack today, but it didn't feel like we got much pressure from the interior defensive line.
No, not at all. I mean, there was the one play where Mack came free because Bilal Nichols lined up over the left tackle, and I mean, it's there's nothing that could be done there when you spring the tight end out for a pass. Uh, it's I don't know, like it's aggravating because that was one of the things that again we heard a lot about in camp, and you get everybody hyped up. You bring in Robert Quinn. Yeah, it's his first game. He's getting his feet wet for the season, coming off an ankle injury, so he might be only at 70%. Maybe that's the case. Mack took off a significant amount of time in the second half as well. It was a pretty long wait between. So we saw way too much of Barcavius Mingo out there
Yes.
for my liking, at least. And I don't know. I feel like for as much as they chose to hype up this defense and everything that they do, it's still leaving quite a bit to be desired, despite the fact they only gave up 13 points
And
this week. It just doesn't feel good, which is
it feels
weird to
like
say.
last year. It feels
Yeah.
like last year where you'd say at the end of the game, if the Bears had lost a game like this or whatever, you'd say, is the defense the reason they lost the game? No. Did they play great? No. Did they play well enough to win? Yes. And today they played well enough to win and gave up 13 points and got the win. But it just doesn't feel. We keep drawing back, and I keep using this word dynamic. It doesn't feel like it was dynamic like it was in 2018. It just feels very much like we're still stuck in 2019, and there's just not much pop to this defense right now. They're not really creating turnovers. We had one that got called back. I don't know. It just feels off.
Yeah, it does. And the other thing here too, and it's not necessarily just on the edge rushers and the defensive line.
Roquan's been quiet.
He has, but Danny Trevathan was even more quiet today,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm starting to think after the very poor showing that he had in Week 1 against Detroit that he might be at the point where he's just straight up lost a step.
Oh
He only
yeah.
had one tackle today. That's it. He He had one tackle. It's like that. I don't understand how that happens when you're playing in the middle of a defense like this, where they're throwing again, throw after throw after throw across the middle of the field where you are sitting. And after a while there, the Giants finally caught on to the fact that, oh, Evan Ingram's open a lot. Let's go and throw towards him.
We saw that last week at the end of the first half against Detroit. I think teams are really starting to find ways to really pick on Trevathan in pass coverage. And a lot of that's what a lot of it comes down to is I think they're able to take him. I think defenses are able to scheme him into bad situations right now. And now the Bears are having to scheme around the fact that teams are scheming Trevathan into bad situations. And it's this constant chess match of, well, we can't afford to blitz Roquan and maybe use him as much as we'd like to use him, letting him roam around a little bit more because we can't leave Trevathan in one-on-one situations or in precarious situations in zone. I don't know. I'd love to, sit down and have an honest conversation with the Bears, with Chuck Pagano and really ask him what's going on with Trevathan. How are you scheming around this? What are teams doing to him? Because it does seem like the last couple of weeks, the opposing team's tight ends have had a really easy go of it against our linebackers.
Right. And I feel like this is one of the things that I feel like I haven't seen much of so far in 2 games, and that's the blitzing that Chuck Pagano has really been, known for to an extent in terms of what he's done on his previous stops in the NFL. And I don't know if there's the concern that could expose certain players more. I feel like that's more or less where things are at right now, that he doesn't necessarily want to send Roquan Smith free into the backfield and worry about
That's where I would lean with that because you're exposing Trevathan. How much do you trust Jalen Johnson at this point? And then who's ever playing next to Eddie Jackson? How much do you trust them? And if you're blitzing, your best blitzers are guys like Roquan and Eddie. And, it's how much do you expose those guys you don't trust in or you can't expose if we are right in our Trevathan theory, we'll call it.
Right. I mean, I will say this: Jalen Johnson had a good game today.
Yeah, actually, he's been really impressive the first 2 weeks for having no off season and coming in cold he's been really impressive. If he can stay healthy, that was the knock on him coming out, especially with the shoulder. The Bears might have found themselves something there, but he's been for a rookie with no camp and no off season. He's been really impressive.
Right. I mean, he had a nice pass deflection late in the game as well. That kind of stifled things for a little bit. Could still, again, as we all know, came down to the wire, the final play again. One of these weeks we'll have a game where we won't be on the edge of our seats and increased heart rates and worrying about health problems if the Bears would just put away a team or just any of the sort.
Yeah, it's really distracting trying to type papers for my master's course while these games are going on. Just like I need a game like Notre Dame had yesterday. It was like 35-0 at half, and I can just coast through the second half and do what I need to do.
Right, exactly. But let's fast forward to that last those last few minutes of the game. I tell you again, Matt Nagy's play calling coming into play here. Jermaine Ifedi with just the chop block penalty is just like you can't do that. Like under no circumstances can you allow that kind of boneheaded mistake. And then to watch Montgomery pick up the pace immediately after that, and honestly almost pick up the first down. And then comes the choice where you would think that the Bears learned from Matt Patricia a week ago when it comes to trying to kick a very long field goal to try and keep the game out of somewhat of a reach, but not the case. And here comes Cairo Santos for a 50-yard field goal that he misses slightly to the left, and a relatively short field for the Giants to try and march down after. And this is the thing that aggravated me the most, I think, about this is the fact that the Giants went down the field 95 yards for a touchdown earlier in the half. Right. It's like, that they can move the ball on you. Your defense is a little sluggish today. Why is this happening?
Honestly, Steven, underrated, really questionable play call is on third down to drop back to pass.
Yes, that too.
I mean, I guess worst case scenario, if Mitch takes the sack and we're assuming reality plays out the way it did and Santos misses the field goal, it's nothing lost. It might actually help the Bears if Mitch takes the sack there, because then you punt and pin the Giants deeper. But just on its face, really risky, really questionable play call that are on third down. I didn't understand that. If anything, just run QB sweep or QB power and just try to center the ball up, pick up a couple extra yards, because as it turns out, you actually put the ball on the left hash, I believe, for a right-footed kicker. So now he's naturally going to pull the ball offline, and you actually lost yardage on it because Mitch slid behind the line of scrimmage. So you actually doubled up on making the situation more difficult.
Which is totally Bears.
Oh yeah, and do we even have to cover if the Bears had lost this game on that missed field goal? If Santos was asked where he wants what hash he wants the ball on, like
it's the Chicago question
again. Alternate universe. There's like this weird nexus out there where did Nagy go to Santos like, hey, we're on a play here, but if Mitch goes down, what hash do you want the ball on, or what way should I roll him?
I mean, oh gosh, I don't want to even think about that can of worms again. Jeez, that was rough last year.
That was the dumbest thing. The best part is you and I called it in the post game. I guarantee you, he didn't ask where he wanted the ball.
Man, and it's just the fact that it almost came down to that moment, just because of the fact, again, just the third down and the pass, like. You have a running back that's averaging 5 yards a carry. Give him the ball.
And he's been gashing them this drive. I think going into that drive, Montgomery was only averaging like 3.3 or 3.2. He was not having a good day into that drive. Maybe it was higher. Maybe it was like 3.6. It wasn't great. It wasn't over 4. But you've been gashing them that entire drive. Just take, even at that point, 5 or 6 yards that you think you'll get. Center the ball up and give yourself a more makeable field goal to make it a touchdown game. Dropping back to out of shotgun, dropping back to pass, and Mitch almost getting sacked, then rolling out, and then sliding behind the line of scrimmage. Whatever, just it was everything was questionable.
Yeah, and like I feel like the worst part about just like the sliding and just the sacks in general today, like the Giants defense, like the defensive line, it's like. They've got like 2 guys that make you go, okay, like there's some legitimacy there. But otherwise, again, this is a team that now is probably going to only win 3-4 games at best, barring some miracle that Saquon Barkley didn't tear his ACL if we find out tomorrow. I don't know. It's again, just so bizarre. The way that first half went, and how well the play calling was and how well oiled everything looked, only to just go back on it. It's like Matt Nagy is his own worst enemy and not understanding the strengths and the weaknesses of his own team that he's been around for 3 years now.
Well, he's got another dumpster fire of a team to play next week to try to figure it out, because the Falcons are just, I don't know what they're doing, but holy hell.
Yeah, that, I'm trying to, because I was watching that after things wrapped up, and I'm like, oh, Falcons have it. I mean, they got out to the early lead. They were good to go, and then I tuned in just prior to that onside kick, and I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, why didn't they just fall on it? Like they literally just sat there and stared at the ball.
What's the bit from The Simpsons where Krusty the Clown bets on the Washington Generals and the Harlem Globetrotters guy just spinning the ball on his finger? Take it from him. It's spinning on his finger. I don't know why they were watching. Just pick it up.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, all things considered, despite how bad the first 2 Bears opponents may be, and despite how high octane this Falcons offense looks, because let's be real here, they look pretty damn good. Calvin Ridley is the real deal, and he is having himself a breakout year. This is as good of a time as you're going to be able to see them this year, coming off of just a disastrous loss that I think at one point Dallas had a 2% chance of winning the game. So they were along the same lines
as Detroit from last week.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I don't know what else the Bears could do to kind of have that silver platter line in front of them and say, listen, tougher team this week. but they're also coming off a psychological mess of blowing a massive lead against a team that literally tried to bomb that game as much as possible, going for it on fourth down with, I think, 2 fake punts in their own territory earlier in the game. It's like Dallas was just willing to be bad because Mike McCarthy is a bad coach. And I think Dallas has finally realized it only took him 2 games, but that's just the fact of the matter. I mean, I don't really know.
Jalen Johnson's going to get tested next week.
Oh, yes, he will.
I would imagine Fuller will be on Julio Jones, and if Johnson pulls the of Ridley, he's going to get tested and tested early and often.
Yeah, I mean, between Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Hayden Hurst, who is a very underrated tight end for the Falcons as well. Danny Trevathan going, he's going to have his hands full because as we saw with the game today, Dallas is down 2 linebackers in both Sean Lee and I'm going to blank on the other one's name. He went to Boise State. I'm going to blank on his name. Vanderbosch, I think. Yeah. And Hurst had his way with him. And so, again, you need to have somebody there on him. And then also a guy that hasn't been talked about much, Russell Gage, who has put up 2 very good games. He's scored in his first 2 games of the year. I'm very worried that this is a team that is going to hang 30 on the Bears very quickly, and it's going to be a matter of can the Bears offense keep up? And I think we all know the answer to that question.
No, they can't.
Yeah, Leighton Vander Esch, that's the name.
I'm beyond the point now, Steven. I'm still in the prove it to me mode for the Bears offense until they go out and do something good or special for an entire game and are consistent. I remain cold on this Bears offense. I refuse to accept the excuse that we're 2-0 and everything's fine. It's not fine. This isn't sustainable. We're not a good football team right now. We can't play a full game. Do that and you'll bring me over. But right now, no, I'm not even going to hear it. And prove me wrong. Put a full game together. Until then, congratulations on beating Detroit and a terrible Giants team. Hats off to you, but no.
You're the dog at the kitchen table in the burning house.
Yeah, this is fine. It's not fine.
This is fine.
No, if you think the Bears are going to win football games like this all year and actually do something in the playoffs, you're wrong. Now, granted, they could get better. They could shake off rust from COVID or whatever and the lack of preseason games, but that logic holds to every single team across the NFL. It's not unique to them.
Right, exactly. But hey, maybe we can get up to 20-point deficit, and then the Falcons will just blow it like they do every
Perfect.
game.
Let's let them get up 20-0. Yeah, it's okay. We're somehow a bad 2-0 football team, but whatever. We saw it. I don't know. I'm just over seeing this team not be able to put it all together because of coaching. It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, there's definitely things that need to be worked out. But here we are, tied atop the NFC North after 2 weeks with the Green Bay Packers. The Viking Lions chilling in the basement and two. There's some padding there for am I back?
You're back, kind of.
No,
there you go. Oh,
I'm back. Okay. I don't know what's happening anymore. My internet's going out apparently again for whatever reason.
It's Sunday. It's a Sunday tradition, unlike any other. It's like the Masters on Sunday, Stephen. Your internet goes out.
At least we get Masters in November this year.
Oh, perfect.
Just a little bit, or October. I don't even know. In the fall.
What month is it? I don't even know what month.
I don't even know what month it is. Everything kind of blends together. It's 2020. That's all we have to say. All right. Well, again, Bears have their work cut out for them, but 2-0. That's all that matters right now. And
cool.
Again, they know what they need to do, and that's all there is to it. So, I mean, any final thoughts?
Congrats on being 2-0. Like, let's keep beating up. I guess let's keep beating up on bum football teams and squeaking by. But
Hey, there's a few of them on the schedule.
I shudder to think what happens when we play an actual good football team at this point.
Give it some time. Give it some time. It will come across sooner or later, as we all know. So we'll get to that, and we'll get to the fun that awaits the Bears in week number 3 as they travel to Atlanta to take on the
every kickoff. Do it.
As we know, they don't know how to collect an onside kick.
Chaos. Onside every kick.
But we'll see what awaits the Bears. We'll talk about it all on the Bear Front this coming Thursday evening. Podcast will release later that night, early Friday morning, to get you ready for the weekend. So keep an eye out for that and everything that we have going on here at Shy City Sports, including Keeping It 100 on Wednesday with Phil and Shane. So a lot of Bears coverage, a lot to talk about with the 2-0 team. We all know what the Bears need to fix. It's just a matter of, will they fix them? And your guess is as good as ours, right?
They've needed to fix it since 2018. Why fix it now?
Exactly.
Tradition.
Exactly. So that will do it here for the Hurry Up Recap for the Bear Front podcast from ShyCitySports.com. For Nick Bidding, I'm Steven Johnson. Thank you for watching us this evening on this fun live stream across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and we will talk to you on Thursday night. Bear down, everybody.
Be safe.